That car there is an important car. It's the new MG ZS EV, and right now at least, it's the most affordable electric car you can buy in Australia. So it'll be many people's introduction to electric motoring. Now, this car's predecessor was also the most affordable electric car in Australia, but it didn't face competition from cars like the BYD Atto 3 and new cheap electric cars from GWM Haval, which are set to launch in the next year or so. So that means that this car can't just be a cheap EV, it has to be a good car. Does it have what it takes? Let's find out. But before we do, remember to check out the full written review over at carsguide.com.au at our EV Guide site section, where we also have all kinds of advice stories that'll hopefully answer all of your EV questions. All right, let's get into the review. First up, pricing and specs. $44,990, that is the drive-away price you can have one of these cars from. That's right, the most affordable electric car in Australia. And I know what you're thinking, what about the BYD Atto 3? Wasn't that meant to be the cheapest? And well, it was. In fact, it's cheaper, but before on-road costs, whereas this one, you can drive away. And MG actually dropped that price at the last second, the day they launched this car, to snatch that title back. And that's one of the key issues facing our MG here. Unlike when the original version launched in 2021, this new version is faced with a new nemesis in the form of the BYD Atto 3, and there are more rivals on the horizon from the likes of GWM Haval and even the Volkswagen Group. Still, the MG will win some buyers over with its attractive small SUV shape, and the brand now has a bigger and more recognisable footprint in Australia, as well as the promise of a 7-year and unlimited kilometre warranty. We'll cover more on that later, but the standard equipment is pretty impressive. Make sure to read the full review for the rundown on equipment available on the base Excite grade, but we're in the top spec Essence, which adds $4,000 to the price, but gains a number of additional items. You can expect 17-inch alloy wheels, a new 10.2-inch multimedia touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity, a 360-degree parking camera, 7-inch digital dash, built-in sat-nav, LED headlights and taillights, as well as keyless entry and push-start ignition. Unique to our Essence here is a panoramic sunroof, synthetic leather seat trim, heated front seats, power adjust for the driver, rain-sensing wipers, roof rails, a wireless phone charger, and additional safety equipment. Interestingly, the ZS EV also offers V2L for the first time, allowing it to power external devices from its charging port. Now, in the past, it was quite easy to accuse MGs of being a little bit derivative in the design department, being a bit of a mishmash of everyone's favourite Japanese and European designs, both inside and out. But with the latest few launches, the brand is really finding its own kind of design language, and the ZS EV moves in the right direction. The brand is finding its own way with its most recent launches though, and the ZS EV follows in the footsteps of the ZS-T before it, with a more refined, more unique look to what came before. The EV version is particularly set apart by its blanked-out grille and aerodynamic alloy wheels, while the inside is defined by a reworked center console and dial shifter, larger, better-looking screens with improved software, and extended soft-touch trims throughout. It's true, the ZS EV is looking and feeling better than ever, and I also think its interior design is much more universally appealing than something like the BYD Atto 3, which is just a bit wacky and out there. There are a handful of areas where you can still tell that this is a budget car. There's some hard trims on top here, and some sort of average looking treatment to this center console here. And the software, while it looks much better than the previous software in the original ZS EV, it is still a little bit laggier than I'd like. Practicality in the cabin is not too bad, but this car still carries over some flaws from the previous car, and in fact all ZS's, in that the seating position is really quite high and there's no telescopic adjust for the steering wheel either. That having been said, I fit in this cabin really easily, even though I'm 182 centimeters tall. Things I don't love in here, there's shortcut buttons here for the multimedia screen, which are nice to have, but you still have to adjust core functions like the climate control using the touchscreen, which I don't love. And as I said, it does have that laggy software as well. When it comes to bottle holders, there's a large one in the door here, 2 more in the center console, and this version of the car has a wireless charging bay there, or there's just a little storage bay if you get the base version of the car. The back seat of the ZS EV, well, not bad at all. I'm behind my own seating position here, and you can see I've got plenty of knee room, and headroom's not too bad as well, despite that panoramic sunroof. The floor is flat, but that's because it's been raised up, so it does feel like you're sitting quite high in here, just like it is in the front. And in terms of amenities, you've got quite a few little nifty things. There's a USB-C and USB 2 charger here, as well as adjustable air vents, pockets on the backs, and a nice bottle holder in that door as well. Boot space comes in at 359 litres, the same as the previous version of this car. You'll need to make full use of it to fit the whole Cars Guide luggage set, and there's no spare wheel, but you do get a little styrofoam tray underneath to store your charging cables. Compared to its predecessor, the new MG ZS EV has a new electric motor. It has more power but less torque than before, and it's smoother and said to be more efficient too. There are 3 drive modes, Eco, Normal and Sport, as well as 3 adjustable levels for the regen braking. No matter which of the 2 variants you choose, the ZS EV is front-wheel drive only. Okay, now here's some of the important stuff. Thanks to a new battery pack measuring in at 50.3 kilowatt hours, the MG ZS EV can travel a claimed 320 kilometers between charges. It's a significant improvement on the 263 kilometers of its predecessor. As I discovered on my testing though, it will heavily depend on how and where you drive it, and as a result, this is still an EV kept for the confines of a city. The ZS EV can charge at a rate of 80 kilowatts on DC, which allows a 5 to 80% charge time in just under an hour. On AC, it's even more interesting. It can charge at a rate of 11 kilowatts, which is impressive for this price point and battery size. And that'll give you a 5 to 80% charge time of about 4 hours. Not bad. And yes, a big benefit this time around is the addition of the V2L charging, allowing the ZS to power external devices at a maximum rate of 2.5 kilowatts from its charging port. The driving experience was one of the weaker attributes of the previous ZS EV, and this new version scores all of the upgrades from the ZST combustion car. Now that means a tweaked platform, revised suspension, and a few other little things that really improve the experience from behind the wheel. The results are good. The steering is better in this car, the ride is better, still not great, but better. Now, when it comes to the handling, the steering has improved over the previous car. However, it still does feel a little bit sort of understeery in the corners, and maybe it doesn't help that you're sitting so far off the ground, but it's still nowhere near as good as its rivals, and it's really up to you to decide whether that's worth it at this price. In terms of sound deadening as well, MG made a big deal of how much extra sound deadening there is in this version of the EV, and it's true, it's all round a lot quieter than the previous version, but it still has a bit of a bassy tone when the suspension has to go over corrugations or such. The new motor is smoother as well, less likely to spin the wheels if you push the accelerator too hard, with that trade-off between power and torque clearly having benefits for most drivers. While that seating position is a little bit funny, visibility out of this car is really good. It's got a big back window, it's got nice wing mirrors, it's got quite a decent view out of the windscreen as well. So all round, this is a nice shape of car that's really easy to park and maneuver. It's also got a bunch of really nifty cameras, from a blind spot camera in this particular model to a surround camera in that center multimedia suite, which makes it a real kind of easy vehicle to use around town. This motor is said to be more efficient, and to that end it has 3 regen modes. None of them are a single pedal driving mode like you might get in a Hyundai or Kia EV, but it has quite a strong regen tune for when you're headed downhill or when you're slowing down to the lights or some such. And it is quite a bit more efficient. But I will say that I did try to range test this car over the weekend, and I drove it up from Sydney to the Central Coast, about 150 or so kilometers. And I was surprised to find that I almost ran out of range, even though the car said I had almost double the range I needed to get back home. I eventually did make it home with a little help from my Kia Niro long-termer and its 2-way charging feature. But it was interesting that the car overestimated how much range it might have. I suspected that this might be a battery cooling issue. There are a lot of hills on that last leg of my journey to get home, and so the battery might have heated up a little bit and become less efficient. I'm not sure, but make sure to check out the full written review at carsguide.com.au to see what we found. The ZS EV comes with most of the brand's MG Pilot Active Safety Suite, which includes things like auto emergency braking, but you will have to splash out to the top spec Essence to get the rear-facing blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert features. Even the base car gets a rather cool 360-degree parking suite. This also includes a rather neat curb camera so you can see your wheel position and blind spot when you indicate. This is an easy car to park. This new version of the ZS EV is yet to have an ANCAP rating, although the previous version carried a 5-star rating from 2019. Ownership is a pretty impressive story when it comes to this ZS EV. There's a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty which covers not just the car, but the high voltage battery as well. In good news, the ZS EV is relatively cheap to service too, only needing to visit a workshop once every 2 years or 20,000 kilometres. And even better news, the first 7 visits, covering a whopping 14 years or 140,000 kilometres, are covered by a fixed price service schedule. The total yearly average cost over that period works out to just $172.50 a year. Pretty damn good if you ask me. The MG ZS EV continues to play a vital role in Australia in bringing that cost down for prospective EV converts. It is a little rough around the edges still, from handling to software, but I think a lot of people will be sold by its good looks, impressive list of features, and low running costs.